Hey guys, how's it going? Good to see you back for another episode this week. This one's going to be fun. I always think they're going to be fun, but this is going to be a little bit different because instead of humans, we're going to be talking about dogs. So it's going to be good. I'm just going to set this up on Facebook. Give me a couple of minutes here, and then we will get started. Say hi in the chat if you're just logging on, and start thinking about your questions about dog nutrition. I know I have a ton. I have a little groodle myself named Molly, and so I'm kind of excited to get some tips for her. Okay, cool. Okay, we are just going to set this up so that everybody can jump on and learn with us. So yeah, let me know in the chat who does have a dog. What kind of dog do you have? Let me know. As I said, I've got a groodle. Oh, hey, Eric and Lisa. What is a groodle? So it's a golden retriever cross poodle. So, but she's black. So she's golden retriever cross poodle, but black. Hello. Woohoo. Oh, look at your hoodie. That's awesome.
Yeah, represent.
Yeah, so good. So good. Awesome. Well, I'm excited for this one. It's gonna be fun.
No, I'm excited too.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing it for a while, so I'm good. I'm asking people in the chat what type of dog. So Janice here has an English bulldog too.
Yay!
I know, literally all your videos and photos make me want a bulldog more and more.
They're so funny. Look, we have a special guest with the special guest.
Toby's actually never been on camera.
Yeah, it's his.
Oh, it's his debut.
Yeah.
His debut, yep.
Is this the one that skateboards?
Yes. He's gonna.
Okay. I reckon if anybody hasn't, I don't know how they can check it out, but if anybody hasn't checked it out, somehow they need to check out little Toby skateboarding, because that is amazing.
Yeah.
So we're excited for this one, Karen. As you know, this is like true to our hearts and, a big part of our lives and everything. And, much like a lot of the things that we talk about every week, just there's a lot of information out there that just isn't known. So I brought in the expert today, and it's going to be pretty raw, pretty real. So we'll get down to it. So are we live on Facebook now?
We're live now. So should we dive in?
Let's dive in. Let's get in.
Awesome.
Okay, awesome. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the Health Made Simple show, dog nutrition edition. So to start off, I want to intro our host, Dr. Bart Precourt, who has been a healthcare provider for over 20 years, practicing a range of modalities, including chiropractic, acupuncture, kinesiology, nutrition and supplementation, and functional testing at his clinic, Balance Health Studio in Seagrove Beach, Florida. He's also the founder of the Health Edge program, which is a virtual health program for entrepreneurs and executives wanting to take their health to the next level. So he works with celebrities and athletes all around the world, and usually shares amazing tips on human nutrition, but we're going to make some links between dog nutrition and human nutrition tonight. But we have an amazing guest. I'm super excited to have you on the show. We've been talking about it for a while. So we have Kelli Precourt on the show, who is actually an Olympic athlete representing the United States in 1996 for field hockey. So after she retired from the US team, she began her entrepreneurial career. She's the founder and co-owner of Balance Health Studio that I just mentioned, which is a health and fitness studio in Seagrove Beach, Florida. She's also the founder and owner of Prima Organic Cafe, which is an all organic cafe opened this past year that I am desperate to one day come and check out. An avid yogi, she also opened up a yoga teacher training school and continues to teach yoga classes weekly, as well as going to the beach almost daily, being an avid real estate investor and known to rescue and rehome a dog from time to time. I believe that for sure. All while loving on training and raising 7 dogs. So you've got Dr. Bob, Daryl, George, Jimmy, Stevie, Paris, and Toby. Did I get all those right?
Oh,
Yeah. So I think that's a range of experience to be our expert today, talking all about dog nutrition. And I as a dog owner myself, I'm so interested to learn everything you've got to share today.
Karen, thank you so much for having me. And Bart, I know we've been talking about it for a while, and I'm super excited because I've been studying nutrition and dog health for so long. And I just, you know, I've never really put it out there. My friends ask me, and I do a lot of consulting with people. So it's just kind of fun to be on the show and just, you know, talk about it because it's real. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah. This is the fact that she said it's real. It's real. Like, we deal with this every day, and we've been doing it. So when I first met Kelli, she came to the party with a dog. She had a little pug.
Who we almost killed.
Yeah, well, I've had my moments. His name was Tyler, wonderful little dog. And then since then, we both were avid dog lovers. And in fact, we actually got a dog before we even got engaged. And then it just kind of grew from there, little bit by little bit. So, you know, dogs have been a big part of our lives. And I mean, I think we're probably, with the rescues and stuff and the rehoming that we've had, we're probably 20 plus dogs over 20 years. Yeah. So
wow.
You know, and you know, maybe one of the big things for everyone tonight is that, I'll be honest with you, we've done a lot of things wrong. We fed them wrong, we trained them wrong, we did all of that, but through the experience, and we learned kind of on our own. We didn't really have along the way too many people saying let's do it this way. But we knew our philosophies in life, and that's what we're going to share a lot with tonight. Our philosophies that you and I talk about every night in our show. It's really not that much different for the dogs. We're just going to give some specific strategies, and we're going to share some real stories with you about some of the things that we've been through with our dogs and how they've really ended up as fuel for us moving forward here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, should we start off with one of those stories? You had a really cool story that we wanted to share.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, I'll start off with and some of the people here might even know we had a dog. His name was Norman, and literally. Norman was my right-hand man. He was one of when you have one of those dogs in your life that is like the love of your life, that was my Norman. And I spent a lot of time with him. Kelli was off, you know, a lot of times, you know, around the world in Australia, whatever it may be, traveling with her team. So I was home with the dogs, and Norman literally was by my side 24/7. So one day I got home and I called him from the backyard to come up, and he just lied there. And he was a big bulldog, big, heavy set bulldog, 85, 90 pound bulldog, where these guys are 50. And he wouldn't come up. So I had to run down into the yard and literally carry him up. He was completely lame. He wouldn't move his back legs. So of course, I brought him to the best doctors around, and it was a bummer. When I go there, they told me that he had torn both of his ACLs. Dogs don't really have an ACL. They have a cruciate ligament. It's just a little bit different. We'll just think of it as an ACL. Told me that he tore both, and that he was going to have surgeries on both legs. And the whole idea, and he had brothers at home, the whole idea was just, it was brutal. And during that time, they had to sedate him with a medication so they could take the proper diagnostic stuff, you know, x-rays and whatnot. And he almost didn't live through that. So he had bulldogs are very tricky and just in general when it comes to their health. And he almost didn't come out of the sedation. His heart almost couldn't handle it. So I had to look at an alternative route. And this is probably 2002, 1, 2, this is a long time ago. So I got a referral from a friend. I'm up in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. And they sent me to a vet way down somewhere in Alabama, about a 2.5 hour car ride. And they said they're a holistic vet, and they, dealt with these things. So I go down and I'm driving. I have no idea where I'm going. Remember, this is 20 years ago. So Google's not helping me out or nothing like that. And I get to this vet, and it's on this farm in the middle of nowhere, animals everywhere. And I bring my dog in, I'm carrying my dog in, and we get in. This is the real interesting part about the story. So she says, One, I want you to make sure that immediately. So this was the thing. Once the dog can heal itself. That's all I needed, because that was the language that I used every single day in my practice. Power to make the body heals the body, doesn't happen any other way. So this vet tells me the dog can heal itself. They never used man to heal. The dog can heal itself. We have to help the dog heal. And I was like, wow, I needed to hear this. So, and then she goes on to do acupuncture, laser therapy. And this is the first time ever she had this wall of these different supplements. First time I ever saw a standard process. She literally pulled this guy off the shelf, and it's called Canine Whole Body Support, which I want to make sure that if you guys want to give one thing to your dogs, this is the one you do. This is where you start. And maybe we'll have a link in that in just a moment. She pulls that off the wall and says, I want you to feed them raw. And I'm like, raw? I'm like, raw? And she's like, yeah, I want you to go to the grocery store, buy liver, frozen, cut it up, give it to them. And she's like, and then chicken breast. And I'm like, chicken breast? I'm like chicken breast, like I would eat. She's like, no, the chicken, the breast, the bones, everything. He needs to heal his muscles, his tendons, his ligaments, and his bone. And we have to feed him muscle, tendon, ligament, and bone. And it was really speaking my language, but it was testing my personal philosophy about how much I really, kind of bought into this whole idea of the power to make the body heal the body. And sure enough, I go home and I'm supposed to do, and she taught me how to do some acupuncture, gave me a bunch of needles, taught me, and I wasn't trained in acupuncture at the time. So I go home and Norman wasn't having anything to do with the acupuncture, nothing. He would literally bite me. It was the funniest thing. Yet I started feeding him liver every day. And I literally would go to the store and get him chicken on a bone and stick it in his bowl. He'd pick it up and he'd go chomp it in the other room. It was a mess in the house. That was like our initial version of it. And sure enough, that dog lived to 11 and a half years. That was like when he was 3. And he was no surgeries. He made it. So that was a huge eye opener for us. So that was that story right there really opened up the eye that, the same philosophies that we have as humans. And many of our listeners, and guys, listen, I know there's gonna be a lot of questions. So everyone on Facebook, you can put in your questions on Facebook. They'll feed them to us. And if you guys are here live with us, awesome. And again, I love that everyone's here tonight. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat, and then we'll make sure we get to them, because we're gonna uncover some stones. We're gonna talk about raw food. We're gonna talk about anything that you guys want to in just a moment. But I tell you what, with that story being said, I think it's really important that we go back and look at, because we'll talk about raw food in a moment, but let's take a walk back for just a moment here and talk about the dog food history. And this is so important, so we understand how we got to where we're at with dog food. So I'm going to pass it over to Kelli. Maybe you could just give us a quick version, but also like the real version of how we got from feeding an animal food to processed, bagged, cooked food. How did we get there?
Right. Yeah. So it's really interesting to me, because it's definitely about manipulation. And so when you know the story of like how it started, you're like, that's interesting. So before there was any like dry processed food, what did dogs eat? What did dogs eat, Bart?
What did dogs eat? They ate meat.
They ate, like whatever. They ate table scraps, right? So dogs ate table scraps. They ate whatever they could get outside. And then in 1859, so 1859, it goes way back there was a gentleman named James Spratt, and he was from Ohio, and he was taking a voyage from the United States to the UK, to London. And when he got off the boat, he saw these dogs that were like on the dock, and the crew members were feeding them hardtack. And so hardtack is, it's like flour and salt and water. It's like a biscuit. Okay. So in my mind, I think about like today, I think of it like a cracker, like a saltine cracker, or even like a milk bone. The milk bones that are like, you're like, there's no food in here. And we still sell them to this day. So anyway, this gentleman had a bright idea of, I'm going to make dog food and start to package it. So it literally was made from flour, water, salt, and they were biscuits. And the biscuits had a little bit of like blood in them. So there was like a little bit of feed for dog, but this is literally how the first packaged dog food came around. And so this is what's crazy is James was a brilliant marketer, like genius. And so he took off, and what he did was he marketed this packaged dog biscuit to everyone and almost made it like the elite were allowed to eat it or allowed to purchase it because it cost money. It was expensive, right? And so he continued to market it, and his business took off so well that 10 years later, he opened up again in the United States. So he was in London and then went to the United States. So other people jumped on board. They jumped on board. He was a brilliant marketer. Other businesses started to like really, start in the dog food industry. And around the 1900s, which still 1900s, that's a long time ago, we started canning dog food, and really it was horse meat. So it was like dog food and horse meat, and it became really popular. And people were smart because they realized that their dogs did better with the canned food because it was at least a little bit real meat versus just like the flour and, like the salt and it just like a hard nothing. Like I think about like a power bar or something that's like not super nutritious, right?
Yeah.
So he continued to market, and the dog food industry just did a really good job of hitting home that table scraps were no longer suitable for dogs.
And I think this is the part that fascinated me so much, that we used to feed our dogs or animals animal food, like literally like a bone from the table or the fat off of the meat. And then all of a sudden they flipped the script and they said, no, that's bad. Don't feed an animal table scraps. We've all heard it. We've heard it, and people even brag about it and say, "I don't feed my dog table scraps." Maybe you shouldn't feed them from the table, but nonetheless, that was real food. And the manipulation came in when we all of a sudden, and this is the interesting thing, that it just parallels what we see today.
Yeah, totally.
Marketing companies own food. It's not food companies that market. So marketing companies own food. So we go back to this guy, James, whatever. He was a brilliant marketer, and he saw an opportunity just to market food. And I think the next part, what gets really interesting. So we know now that the flip was, if you were like cool and you had money, you would buy processed food, because that was innovation. That was science at the time.
Yeah.
So remember, like, science isn't always bettering us. It's giving us data. It's just giving us data. In the time, the new science was to process food, because it could stick around longer. It could, stay on a shelf longer. And it was something that, we could offer the dogs. But then the interesting part is really like after the war.
Yeah. So like the can industry, like it took off, and with the marketing, and people were feeding their dogs cans until, like Bart said, World War II happened. And we started rationing cans because we needed the metal to send it off to war, and also rationing meat. Mm-hmm. So then that's when we started doing a new process to actually produce something small, dog food, kibble. I call it kibble, but it's dog food in those small little like pellets.
The dry food pellets, right?
Yep. And that's the dry food, highly processed, like, that's where kibble was born. So kibble was born, mid 1900s, and literally like it took off. And the marketing campaigns, and what's kind of crazy is that there was really no nutrition behind it. Like in the beginning, there was no nutrition. You have an electrician. That's who James Sparse was, or Spratt. So it's like, he was an electrician that was like, this would be great. Let's start dog food. But, it's just really interesting because nothing really happened until about 1964. You have the pet food, 1964. Pet Food Institute then came about, and what they did was they started lobbying. And so they started lobbying, and they started funding research to basically tell people no longer feed table scraps. It's so bad for your dog. So they funded research that showed that processed food was better than real food.
Wow.
It's crazy.
And what's super crazy about this is that we look at this and you think, well, this is an insanity. Like, do we really start to like market and believe that these processed foods would get for our dogs? Well, the same thing happened for humans. We haven't too much. And I'm going to pass on my dates here. I know I'm going to mess them up, but it was about the 1930s there used to be something called a food law, a real food law. That law basically said the only way you could pass or sell something as food if it was beneficial to the human body. Folks, there used to be a law that said you could only feed something to humans if it was human grade and it was beneficial to the humans. Now we think, okay, well, that makes perfect sense. Well, at the time, flour did not pass that grade.
Yeah, I bet.
Flour didn't do it because it's detrimental. It's processed food. There's no vitamins or nutrients in it. It always creates inflammation. It was actually illegal to sell flour until a simple thing happened. And I forget what commission it was, like the food, maybe it was the FDA, a different dude gets elected, passes it that that food can do it. And then they flipped, that's where they made the pyramid with all the grains on the bottom. And now, like, it took some time. So the whole thing that happened with this kibble industry is crazy where it starts, because I think right now, 90 to 95% of dog owners feed their dogs kibble.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
Yeah.
It's pretty high,
Well,
which means the dogs are eating from the grocery or from the gas station, right? I said McDonald's. He was like, don't say McDonald's.
Yeah.
Like the gas station, packaged food, right? Well, and that makes sense. It's packaged food. It has a very long shelf life.
Yes.
Marketing with it though. I mean, there's like organic, natural. They list out everything that's like meant to be in it. They do a good marketing job on it these days.
Amazing. And Karen, I could go on for another 3 hours about all of the buzzwords that they're allowed to say, whether it's like the meal or the kibble or the chunks or dinner, all these words that they're allowed to say that make people think that it's more nutritious.
So the interesting thing is that, so a lot of times people, we got manipulated a little bit to the idea, and this is on us, and this is no different than, the things that we talk about every week. And I know this tribe gets this, but one of the reasons we're so easy to manipulate is because we always want convenience.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about, or she's going to talk about raw food. She does most of the work, and it does take an effort, and it does take a couple extra steps, and there's ways we can start at the beginning and at the, and move our way up the ladder here. But that's also the same as like making yourself a meal instead of going out for a processed meal every night. So there's always levels that we can start at. And that's part of the way that it was so easy to get people to do it. And the other challenge here is this, is like, I think everyone listening, when I say what I'm about to say, you're going to just scratch your head. Listen, do you think your dog should eat the same food at the same time every day of the year and not vary at all?
And the same protein, like the same exact protein, like a dog eats lamb its entire life.
We wouldn't do that. I wouldn't recommend it as a clinical nutritionist to eat the same food, all the time. So, it was that convenience factor of having, food in a bag that had a shelf life of literally months that they could sit, they could sit in these bags. And listen, we did it. We fed our dogs, up until Norman. We really had another circumstance that really shifted us a little bit more. And again, some of our audience might know this guy. He made it to Florida. Well, they both made it to Florida, but his name was Angus. He was our first dog together. And he was, again, one of those, gifts from God. He was just a beautiful creature, a beautiful spirit. Yeah. And there was something wrong. I knew there was something wrong. One day I brought him to the vet. We did a scan. He had a big old tumor, unoperable tumor in his gut, like just in the center of his body, in the center of his mass. And we dug in a little deeper, like, how does a dog get a tumor? And all roads led to nutrition.
Yeah, it's like 60% of dogs are going to get cancer. I mean, it's
higher than that. It's higher than that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad.
Yeah. So that was an eye opener for us. And that's when we really started to evaluate like how we were, helping these animals live, how we were like feeding them. And listen, they rely on us. It's like if you're a mom out there and you just, told your kid, no big deal, you're just going to eat this the rest of your life. Like, you're responsible.
Yeah, totally.
Just like, and that's the way we felt like now we have a responsibility. It's not by luck. It's not by chance. It's not just by genetics. Folks, your dogs still apply. The law of epigenetics still applies to your dog, which means their entire lifestyle, how happy they are, how much they get to run around. And we'll probably talk about dog behavior stuff in another show, but the foods became real important to us. That's when we did a deep dive. And listen, some of it was funny. I'd feed the dogs. I'd literally go to Publix and get a big rack of drumsticks. And I just go home and drop them on the ground. And like, I thought it was the coolest thing in the world until those drumsticks made it all around the house. Like they don't drumstick.
Like we would find them under the couch.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not good.
Charlie, I know he got in a lot of trouble for that one.
So
that's not good.
So, so that whole idea, like, we kind of stair-stepped it up a little bit, but going back to really observing and saying, like, what is in kibble? And I think that's really, let's move into that category a little bit. Like, so what is in kibble relative to what's in really whole food?
Yeah, so that's a thing that's really, I think, challenging for me to even like, it's like once you know something, you can never like unknow it. So for me, we steer away from it. We won't feed them. Like I'll find anything else before I feed my dogs kibble. And there's many reasons behind that. The first thing is that the quality of the so-called meat that they put in there is so poor. There are, I think, maybe only one company that I know of, maybe there's more, that has like human quality, like it's been checked by the USDA, like it's quality that a human could eat it, kibble, like a dry food. So we're literally, when kibble is made, it's like 3D and 4D meat, which means that it's diseased, it's dead, it's dying, it's decaying. And so I know, right? Look at your face. That's so funny. But can they see your face? But so that's, and we're using high heat, oils, and then very high carbohydrates. So the only way that kibble is kibble that stays together is to use starch. So we're using obviously the oils and the kibble, the starch, and then the byproducts of meat. And then we're heating it to make that perfect little kibble. And, it's just, the meat comes from rendering plants, which is, again, not approved for human consumption. And I think about that. That's so far from God's garden, right? It's the way that we would never eat that ourselves, like crappy, like beef jerky or something that's not organic. Why would I feed my dogs that?
Yeah. So, and when, to Kelly's point there, that the food that's going into it, like, even people in our tribe here, and I think you guys all get this, like we've become pretty good at reading labels. And then when we go to the dog food, you look at the bag. And so, and like you were saying just a moment ago, Karen, and it looks amazing. You see like a turkey and like a piece of salmon.
Big thing of beef, like that's in there.
And then the carrots and then, the other, like, it's just like a happy little farm. And then when you get into the ingredients and you start to read or understand what's taking place there, and what she talked about, the high pressure processing, the heated foods, essentially what we do at that time, we go all the way back to what's called denaturing.
Yeah.
We denature a protein and denature our fats, and really there's nothing more toxic. So you guys have heard me say, when I talk about like cod liver oil, the reason we want to bite it, it has to pass the bite test. The reason being is if that oil is denatured, it'll taste bad. And it's very massively toxic for the human body to have bad oils in us. So that's why no one here eats canola oil and that kind of stuff. So, but our poor dogs, they're getting denatured proteins and denatured fats. And in the chain of what's bad for us, a bad protein is bad. A bad fat is even worse. And our pups, they don't have a voice. So if technology works for me tonight, I'm going to show you guys a super, super cool video of one of the things that we do, like
the kibble.
Yeah. We have a video of our puppy, Toby, at like 5 months old. And
8 weeks.
8 weeks.
Yeah. It was when we first got him, the day we brought him home.
I actually don't pay attention until they get to like 7 months.
He doesn't even know Toby yet. Yeah. But it's really interesting because we do it with dogs. We've been feeding raw for, I guess, 18 years now. And so whenever, you know how many dogs we've had in our family, right? So whenever we get a dog, I'm always like, I always want to be like, I want to see. So I always video the like transition to see half kibble. Yeah, let's do it. So it's like half kibble and then half meat. So we feed raw. So it's raw meat, it's organs, it's bones, and then it's a little bit of veggie in there as well.
You guys just keep talking. I'm going to try to share.
Yeah, he's going to do it. But so it's really interesting because Toby, so we have a video for Toby, but we've done it with all of our dogs. So I know it always works, but there are so many people that call BS on me that I love to have it because I post it all the time when we have a dog.
Yeah, well, I was oh, okay, here we go. Let's check it out.
All right. So what you're about to see here, this is our 8-week-old puppy. And when you come with the, with an animal, right? Like they usually come with, the breeder will give them kibble. So can you guys see that? Oh, Karen, can you see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
Chat, just maybe give me a thumbs up or something.
Yeah, the left side, if it's on, it's all fresh meat. Like I said, it's lamb, it's lamb organs, bones, and then there's like a little bit of veggies in there as well. And on the right side is some kind of processed kibble.
The kibble that the vet gave us. I'm not the vet. I'm sorry, the breeder.
Yeah.
Right.
Who actually was amazing. I'm gonna say she was awesome because she does raw feed her dogs.
All right. I hope this is the right video.
Well, it's gonna have Toby and it'll be cute anyway.
After all, we'll see what happens. And so you can see right away he goes to the side where it has fresh food. And I always because people will be like, oh, well, that's where you put it down. So like sometimes I'll spin it just to like make him eat, like try to make him eat the kibble. And he's like, I don't think so.
Yeah. 100%. I was saying earlier, so I have my dog's almost 2 now, but I feed her mostly raw food. I've got some things I need to upgrade, but I also leave kibble out for her. And literally it's only if I've run out of raw food and haven't fed her, or she's really hungry from something, that she goes for the kibble. Otherwise,
the can of in your cabinet, right? It's like.
So this is the best part.
Walks away.
He walks away.
And comes back because there was a morsel of raw left.
And then he'll boogie again, which is really, really fascinating. So.
Yeah, he knows, right? He's like, I don't want to eat that stuff.
And it's so this is instinct. This is just a puppy this is one of the first times he's ever eaten raw, and you have all this dry stuff, and it's I'm going to give an analogy in just a moment of like what happens when we feed children. Children feeding children, so that he just leaves it.
He's done.
Done. Bye-bye.
Wow, isn't that crazy? That's such a good video to have, because it is. Look, he didn't want to eat, right? They just often just want like they just can keep eating. They love food, but yeah, he wasn't interested in that at all.
Here's what's really important. A lot of times, and I want to bring this back to the human world for just a moment here, especially with our children, that if we continue to give that dog kibble and we get its body hooked on it, meaning hooked on carbohydrate metabolism, we get it hooked on all carbs. Remember, all carbs, and you guys know this, all carbs convert to sugar. If he gets hooked on it, he'll become addicted to a fuel source of sugar. So maybe somewhere down later in his life, and we try the same experiment, he needs to be hooked on sugar and can't do it. That's no different than my client that comes in to me says, no, I don't like red meat. It's bad for me. It's because they've been hooked on carbohydrates and sugar. When I love this video for a couple of reasons. That's a puppy. We have the epigenetics now, what we do with its lifestyle. Children, and listen, no guilt or shame here, but just an eye opener. If you have children, if you're feeding them kibble, what's kibble in a child's life? It's processed chips, it's crackers, it's bagels, it's what did I get today? Chocolate croissants for breakfast. Listen, I get it. It's more convenient. It's manipulation that we're manipulated thinking that that's food. And listen, in the beginning, when you give a child, a baby, you give it sugar, it screams because the sugar literally inflames the intestines and the guts on the inside. So literally we damage the inside, and then eventually they only become a sugar metabolizer. So just a little side note there. So this is real deal. Like the kibble itself, like most dogs don't want it. It's really not food.
But we don't give them a choice. We, just like Bart said earlier, it's like we don't give them a choice. And when you clearly see, when you give your dog a choice between real food and packaged food, it goes for the real food. And so for me, I feel super responsible to take care of these little mouths, right? And if I had kids, I would be the same way. Like I would have my kid eating real food. And so that's how we feel about the dog food. I mean, just because it's what we do and it's what we would do if we had children. And so I just want to say, 100%. Convenience kills vitality. And that's with our food and it's with the dog food. So if you're going for convenience and that's your deal, then that's your deal. And I respect wherever you are, because not everyone can transition to raw, you know? So like there are things,
we'll give some options.
We're going to give you options that if you're like, no way, I'm not doing raw, we'll give you options to upgrade your kibble.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's start with that. Yeah. What should we be feeding our dogs?
Well, let's go there in a moment, because I do want to at least address what happens if you do feed kibble. So let's just say it's not just a food quality, but what happens? What do we see? What shows up in the clinic? So the number one reason that a dog in our country goes to the vet, the number one reason for an office visit is allergies. And with those allergies, we're talking about ear infections, you know, licking your ears, the watery of the eyes, and the paws, the constant licking of the paws. So these are real things. Now, here's the challenge. So these folks, these are food allergies. You've heard me on this show, like talk about if you got a skin issue, you got an inside issue, which means you got a liver gut issue, which means you got a food issue. You had a food issue at some point. Your microbiome was broken down. And again, we're not knocking this. And again, just so everyone's known, we're not playing vet here. We're just playing like dog advocate here, right? So we're not trying to.
But I also think it's important to know that like you don't just have to get your information from your vet. Like there's so much information about like eating healthy. People don't go just to a nutritionist to get information about how to eat. So that's the thing that kind of challenges me, where people were like, well, you're not a vet or you haven't been to school. Well, there's not a lot of education on that end of it, where there's some people that, like myself, that just have passion for feeding my dogs healthy. And there's a lot of great information out there if you're willing to dig.
Yeah. Well, you've been to school of hard knocks, right?
Yeah.
School of writing checkbook, anyway, so there's a lot of things that it causes. So I want to do the Kingston.
Okay. But let's talk about what it does. As far as
okay. So when the nutrition, so Kibble itself, I'm going to go back to Norman for just a moment here, the dog that had the 2 ACLs. I had to do a deep dive and try to figure out, why did the whole food heal him and the Kibble, maybe contribute to him tearing his ACLs? And it was real simple. When we eat processed food, we are devoid of minerals and vitamins. You're not getting collagen. You're not getting proteins. And these are fundamental building blocks of a dog, but also a human being. So when you don't have minerals, you got weak ligaments.
And I think that him being neutered early contributed to his ACL tear.
Yeah, and that's.
I know that's a whole other topic.
But it's real.
Yeah,
it's real. Listen, there's nothing normal about neutering, and that baloney about them saying, well, when you neuter your dog, it's less likely to get cancer. That is
bullshit.
Yeah. Listen, she says, yeah.
There's some research that basically the dogs need those hormones to build like bones and muscles. And it is so sad to me that some organizations are de-sexing dogs at 8 and 12 weeks. It should never be done. And so
happened to my dog, because the breeders don't want you to be able to breed them actually.
What about responsibility for being a responsible parent and choosing to do it if it's right for you versus just de-sexing?
Well, that's, a lot of the breeders do it before you even get the dog. Like that was done before I was able to get the dog. So if I want these dogs, you have to, they do it before you even get it. It's pretty crazy. It's so little.
And I think Karen, you and I were talking off camera a little about this, that there's 5 times the amount of dog ACL repairs. Dogs don't actually have an ACL. They have like a what's called a cruciate ligament, but think of it as an ACL repair. Man, the last stat I saw, I almost have a hard time believing it, but said in our country, there's 1 million dog knee surgeries per year. 1 million. There's only 200,000 for humans. Listen, this number is just compounding every single year. We're gonna say, why? What are they doing? Are they playing harder? Are they more athletic? Are they playing more sports? No, they're demineralized, denatured, they're getting their stuff
desexed,
cut off their bodies. They can't build the hormones to make those muscles, tendons, and ligaments, and massive, massive, massive nutrient deficiencies. So that's why that one, again, if you guys are looking to start anywhere, there is, so I think, I don't even know if I showed it, but there's this guy. It's called Canine Whole Body Support. Think of this.
The link in the chat.
Oh,
These guys got 20% off that for people listening today.
And it's a powder, so you can do it by weight for your dog. And that's the beauty of this. So it'll last a long time for you.
And for those of you that are, that go online and like have registered, they have a code with us. If you go onto the vet section, there are some great products. And there's like the Flex. So I have the Flex here. We have the what is it called? Musculoskeletal. Yeah. I mean, there's like really great products for the dogs. And this is what is so amazing. These are all whole food supplements. Not a lot of companies are whole food. So like when you get stuff for your dog, a lot of it is synthetic. And that's the thing about Kibble. There's synthetic vitamins in the Kibble, no whole foods.
So I'm gonna go back to technology for a moment here, and then Karen, when I get done, maybe we'll take some Q&A, and then we'll go into like, all right, what does feeding raw look like? Yeah. Like what can we do? Where is a great place to start? And then if you're local, we'll even give you some local places, and Kelli will give some local places and even some brands. But I want to share again, and I'm gonna kind of preface this story just a little bit. So this one over here has been known to be willing to rescue a dog or two along the way. And because we have a pack, that's how it's always justified to me. Well, we got so many.
We got a good pack.
Yeah. So I don't know. Anyway, so in her group, and she's part of like Frenchie groups and English Bulldog groups and Frenchie English Bulldog groups and all this stuff. Anyways, someone reached out to her and said, there's a dog and the owners are going to euthanize him because his allergies are so bad. And it kind of hurt me, made me a little mad, but then I was also like, I felt very like, I don't even know the word, the emotion is, but like, I was like, man, I give those owners a lot of credit to put themselves in the public and announce this, because I knew they were going to take a lot of flack. Yeah. But like any one of us, like all we want is for our little ones, our loved ones, to feel good and to be well. And they had done everything in their mind. They had gone to vet after vet after vet and literally spent thousands of dollars on steroids and antibiotics. Yeah. So the dog's belly, and I'm going to show you some pictures in just a moment. I don't know that the pictures really do it any justice. You're going to see its belly. It's covered in yeast from the, like literally on the outside, growing on its skin.
And just a backstory for, it's Kingston, and Kingston is, he's living his best life with our pet sitter and friend, Carrie. And you'll see pictures coming up. But when he came to us, his backstory, basically, he was on, because I had some vet records. It was like, he was 4 years old. His first steroid injection was at like 9 weeks. And then antibiotics. He was on antibiotics every single month. His skin was so bad. It was so yeasty. And for those of you that think it's like not a big deal to put your dog on antibiotics, you have to understand it's 16 months to rehab the gut after one round of antibiotics. So yeah, you have to consider that. So like, you know, a lot of doctors give them out like they're gummies, right? Like no big deal, but we pay the price down the road. And this is what happened to this poor dog. And he was on Apoqual, and he was on, I don't know if it's Cytopoint, or he was on all of the drugs that one could be on, and his body just said enough.
Yeah. So the whole thing was shutting down, and like a lot of people will understand this. So, you know, once the discomfort sets in, then other things and anxiety, and we can talk about in just a moment for dogs, because that's going through the roof right now as well. But everything about the dog, really the chi, the vitality of this little dog was going aside. And
convenience kills vitality.
Yeah, and nothing intense. So I want to share some pictures here, and we do this because it's almost hard for me to watch this.
It is. But there's a happy ending, so it's really sweet. Because we So
I'm gonna lean on technology again. I'm gonna go to first.
Yeah, that's great. Right. So this is the day that we brought him home.
Oh, let me see.
Oh wow! Look at his legs too.
Yeah. And Karen, that does not even do. I mean, that poor little dude. It was like elephant skin. It was so raised, and it stunk so bad. So that's him getting a little bath.
This is after the bath, and we were literally able to rub some of the like
Dead
yeast
skin.
and dead skin
Yeah.
off. And you can see like his eyes were swollen, his paws were swollen, like every part of him hurt. And you can see I was even wearing gloves, at least half a glove there. Just everything about his poor little body, and it was so hot.
Yeah,
I can't even
so
explain.
hot.
Like literally so hot. So let me bounce around here.
So we had other pictures too that like you could see his little feet when we washed them, they started to bleed, and we took him for a walk after his first walk, and it was like, oh gosh, we shouldn't have done that because he literally was bleeding so bad.
Aww.
And then, okay, yeah, this is awesome. So look at this top photo. This is the day we picked him up. Look at his face. And then that was like July 5th. Yeah, it was like July 5th. And then this was like mid-August. The one below is mid-August. And that was him post rehab with Bart and Kelli.
Quite fast though.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh, it's unbelievable.
He was a different dog. He was a different dog leaving. And, you know, like the discomfort level that this poor little dude was going through, it was hard to see. Like it was hard to watch him.
Oh, I bet.
Dude, it was so cute.
Let me try to find this.
Okay, and then
look at that.
up is the paws just totally yeasted out. And then the bottom picture is him after several weeks of nutrition, raw fed. And this is the thing, we stopped cold turkey. Mm-hmm. He was on so many medications. When we got him, we were like, he can't get any worse. So we just stopped everything, and we started with the whole food supplementation, and we started right away giving him raw food.
Yeah, and that's an important, like a lot of people say, would have asked us during that time, did you wean him? No, we went cold turkey.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons being is that, listen, your health is a race. We have to at some point stop all the toxins that are coming in the body, rehab the systems and organization of the body, and then help the body heal itself. The healing part requires, so we got to stop the bad guys, clean out the body, heal the body, put the good nutrients back in. There's a couple more here I want to share. So we'll go here and just kind of maybe, I don't know if this really shows it enough.
Wow.
That was his belly like the first day. And then that was probably about 3 weeks before he left us.
Oh.
Face.
Yeah, that's beautiful that you were able to. That's crazy though, that's really just food and supplements.
We did know, and you know, Karen, I'll be honest with you. Bart was like, I'm bringing the expert here to talk about it. But like through this whole thing, there were times that I was like, man, this is tough. It was hard to deal with. He was uncomfortable. And I was like, Bart, maybe we should just go and like get him like a little something from our doc. Cause I felt like he was so uncomfortable. And this one was like, trust the process, trust the process. That was probably like, I don't know, maybe 10 weeks in, and it was just like, I felt like it wasn't changing. And then all of a sudden something happened and it shifted.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at the difference. That's crazy. Look at his little paws. They were like red before. They're actually like black. Like you wouldn't even have known that they were going to be black. Like,
yeah.
And then kind of the reason we do all of this, or why we do anything like this, really is summed up in this next photo, and this is why.
Yeah.
Aww.
Going home that day that he went home with Carrie, and he is living his best life now with Carrie and her son Luke.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow, that's super amazing. And I love those because I think it is so powerful to actually see like just literally changing up his nutrition, adding in some supplements and cutting out, maybe most importantly, cutting out the stuff that was irritating him, right? Like getting rid of the junk food, getting rid of things like Kibble. That's probably almost the biggest impact there, is it?
Yeah, like it's all three of those things. So Karen, you and I often talk about like, one, we got to discover what's wrong. And the idea that when you have a skin issue, you've got an inside out issue. And Kelli spoke to the fact that there was steroids and antibiotics. So, and we understand that creates comfort, but it's also convenience. In the real, what really has to happen, we got to go inside. We got to heal from the inside, which means we got to stop the junk from coming in. We got to heal the organs, and then we got to give it time. Healing takes time. And that is the part. And I'll encourage all of you guys, when I get it. So unfortunately, there's another part of this story too. That little guy, Kingston's older sister, was put away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, and I, literally to the grace of God, that this owner was willing to go on social media and say, I'm at my last straw here. I'm going to euthanize my dog unless someone can literally take this for me. And I know this isn't for everyone, but one of the reasons we wanted to do this show so much and just kind of shed the light on that, these little critters, they can get really uncomfortable, and there's ways we can navigate it, and it's not really difficult. You don't have to be an expert in food. We got to go back to that premise of God's garden. If it comes from the root plant tree, walks in the garden, swims in the sea. And going back to the kibble just for a moment here, and this will kind of give us forward into what to feed the dog. That one of the biggest challenges with the kibble is that it's 80 to 95% carbohydrate based. That's not what dogs eat. They're carnivores. Yeah, so they're supposed to be eating.
Some of them are a little bit lower, like the higher end kibble. Like, okay, do you have high end fast food? I mean, but some of them are a little bit higher in protein. But I think the biggest thing is that it causes inflammation and it causes dehydration. So a lot of people don't realize that the moisture content in kibble is between 3 and maybe 11 to 14%, maybe. I haven't looked at the back of a kibble bag in forever, so I'm not sure what that is. But in real food, raw food, it's 70% water. Water is life. So literally these dogs that are eating kibble are chronically inflamed and chronically dehydrated.
Yeah. So let's Karen, let's take some questions, and then we'll dive into the raw part.
What to eat, how to do raw. Right?
Should we do that first?
After the questions.
What if we should do that first?
So let me just do this. There was a study in 2005 for kibble fed dogs. So I'm going to give like a little bit of like light on that wah wah. So if you feed your dog 3 times a week green leafy vegetables on the kibble, so just a little bit, 20% fresh food. So we'll just say broccoli and spinach, okay? 20% 3 times a week. Your dog is 90% less likely to get cancer. If you feed your dog 3 times a week, yellow or orange vegetables, that it's 70% less likely they will get cancer. That's huge. So if you choose that this is your route, you're going to feed kibble, add fresh food, 20%, take 20% of the kibble out, put 20% fresh food in there, and you're winning.
So
when it comes to vegetables, vegetables, are they raw?
So this is the thing, you don't want to feed them just completely raw. You can do a couple different things. You want to puree it because the dogs can't break down the big veggies. And you know that when you give your dog a carrot or you give your dog a green bean and you see it on the other end. So you want to puree it, put it in your Vitamix, put it in a food processor, get it into like a puree form, and then feed it to your dog. 20% of it, take away 20% of the kibble. You can also steam it a little bit, but the nutrient content goes down a little bit as we heat the food. Imagine that. Yeah.
All right. So we'll paint a picture of like kind of what raw food. Some of the bigger questions that come up will be like, well, what do you mean raw? So there's one.
What are you actually feeding them? What is this?
There's like what's really at play is an entire animal, other than the fur, quite frankly. So we're talking about bones, we're talking about organs, we're talking about skin, we're talking about collagen, we're talking about animal meats and proteins, we're talking about the whole kit and caboodle. So if you have a place, and we'll recommend a couple places that we use, that they literally use the whole animal.
And they grind it.
They grind it up and then they kick it back.
So I think that if like for the raw, you can obviously buy something pre-made as well. There are a lot of commercial foods that are pre-made raw, 95% meat, organ, and bone, 5% veggies. And if you're local, I know that William down at Bow Wow Meow in Seagrove, he carries both Primal, Stella and Chewy's, Answers, which is my favorite in raw, and a couple other brands, but he's done an amazing job. Bow Wow Meow and Seagrove getting all of the, you know, the prepackaged raw for people. So you could start there, literally.
Yeah, and then so often there'll be the questions about bones that'll come up all the time, because we've always been told, oh, don't give your dog bones. Cooked bones splinter, and that can be a challenge for your dog. So we don't want to give cooked bones to your dogs because they splinter and they're sharp. But raw bones are more springy. Now, listen, I don't give them like these big long ones because my dogs like to swallow things whole. But I have absolutely no problem with them being chopped up and put in there, because again, you want strong bones. There's no greater source of calcium for an animal. Remember, we know in this group that calcium supports our immune system, supports our bone and tissue. So getting good sources of bone is phenomenal. So let's take some questions.
Okay.
Karen, you got questions on that end?
Sure do. All right. Yeah. Well, actually, when you're talking about the food that you are, what about, can you feed them, if you're sticking with that and feeding raw and feeding that type, can you do the same every day, or do you need to mix it up?
I would personally mix it up. I wouldn't do, it's the same thing. I mean, even if you're eating healthy, would you want to eat the same thing every single day? So if there are any nutrient deficiencies in what you're feeding your dog, then you're creating it more. So you want to change it up. You want to have different proteins. You want to have different vegetables. You want to rotate the proteins.
And then there's some other things. So for example, like we know, like if we eat red meat, there's a higher fat content, and that gives good omegas. If we eat fish, there's omegas. But if you feed chicken, like even for us, there's very, very little fat in chicken.
Yeah.
So we're losing out on that component of it. So we want to make sure that we kind of level up our game a little bit when it comes to that. And that's there's several things that we will add to the food. We'll do our raw food.
Yeah.
But then there's several things. I think we got a couple things here.
Yeah, I got a bunch of stuff right here. So I love eggs for the dogs. You can do raw eggs. You can do scrambled eggs.
Shells.
Eggs are amazing. You can use the shells. You want to make sure if you use the shells, though, that it is completely organic, because the conventional eggs put some shiny chemicals on the egg, so it looks good for the consumer. So eggs, also sardines. Bart is known to eat these sardines at times.
So literally, I guess I eat dog food.
He eats dog food. Okay, so if you're using kibble or raw, because I use raw, I use goat's milk for the dog.
Oh.
Good source of probiotic.
Probiotic, yeah.
So you said with eggs can be cooked or raw, right? Both is just as good, really? Okay.
But it's also, a study actually just came out that if you have like a soft boiled egg, that's the best way to serve it actually to your dog.
But I'll tell you, if anyone that's ever pet our dogs, one of the biggest comments we always get is their coats.
Yeah.
And there's two reasons for that, is that they get the essential fatty acids from eggs, and we do a lot of cod liver oil and a couple other oils, but those essential fatty acids are incredible for their skin, but also their fur.
Yeah.
And what's cool is that they don't shed as much. They'll shed, don't get me wrong, but their skin is so much healthier in their fur, so they don't, and it doesn't have as much odor as well.
Yes.
Okay, my dog's obsessed with eggs. She like goes crazy for them.
Kefir, this is Answers. This is the company that I love, the raw company. So this is Kefir, which is a cow's milk yogurt for the dog. Also bone broth for the dogs. Awesome points. What else do I have here? Oh, coconut oil. Coconut oil for the dog.
How do you put that in? Just in with their food?
Teaspoon in their food, yeah. They love it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
One of the companies, and I'm sure some of our viewers are gonna be listening. We use a company out of Miami, and again, no affiliation, but we've been pleased with their service, customer service, reliable. It's called Raw Food Miami.
Raw Feeding Miami,
Raw Feeding,
and we order the grind, so it's the meat, the organ, and the bone as well, and then we add some vegetables to it. And that's actually what we feed them. And we rotate the proteins. We do rabbit, we do goat, we do beef, we do salmon.
Do you do vegetables every day with that?
Yeah, we do. And that's the thing about like the...
How much?
How much?
How much
vegetables, I probably do about 2 tablespoons of that puree into their food with the meat.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different than like if ideally we looked at our plate, we'd have a huge thing of vegetables and a smaller portion of protein, like for us humans. And on the flip side, for the dog, it'd be a huge thing of protein and a smaller version of vegetables.
Yeah, don't feed your dog just veggies. The vegan diet for the dog is not right. I'm sorry. That's like torture.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, is that a thing?
It is.
It is. Okay. So, and for the peeps that are going to do this, inevitably, something will go on with your dog and you might ask your vet. And again, listen, my vet and I, we have become literally lifetime friends. We've been, he's been helping me out for 20 plus years. I still use a vet. Him. We go there every Saturday. Dr. Bar, he's awesome down in Panama City. And I use my vet for vet services. But when it comes to nutrition, I don't use my vet.
Yeah.
You follow me? And I think that's important. I think most people listen and they understand, and it's just because they don't have training in nutrition.
Yeah, and just like the pushback from the story of like the history of kibble and like processed food, they did a really good job of like telling people not to eat or not to feed their dogs like the table scraps and meat. I feel like right now there's a little bit of like tension amongst the pet food industry, that like the kibble and the raw feeders, where they're like, well, there's no science behind it. You're going to get salmonella. Your dog's going to get sick. Someone in your house going to get sick. Do you let your dog kiss your face? Like there's so many things that are crazy. And so all we know is that when we have situations like Kingston, we're like, okay, whatever. And we just let it go.
Yeah, I love that one. All right, we've got another question should we do more questions?
Yeah, go ahead, fire away.
Question from Fiddler here on Zoom. What about semolina? And what about rice as well?
About what?
Semolina?
Salmonella, yeah. That's what I'm just saying. So
I think it's salmonella. Oh, maybe it is salmonella. Oh, okay, yeah.
So that's why we said it before, even because everyone always says it. And unfortunately, if you go to a certain vet, they have a coined statement that they say about salmonella. And you have to realize that most of the vets sell prescription food. And so if you can get your client to come back once a month and buy their food, if they open their eyes, the consumer, and they recognize that that food isn't worth shit, they're going to do anything and everything to get them back on the food.
And that, and it also speaks to it. I think sometimes when we hear those things, what about, and then the question itself provokes fear. Listen, we just went through a year of provoking fear and we missed it. We got another year coming. So, and I'm talking about COVID. Oh my God, what if you get COVID? What about getting healthy? What about getting super strong? And if you need to use provoke with fear, what happens if you keep your dog on kibble? We know that there's a higher likelihood of cancer, of skin issues, of all that stuff. Money will cost you with the vet bills. And worst of all, the biggest thing is that your loved one will be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the likelihood of salmonella is very, very minimal. And
there's no research behind it. It's just something that they throw out. There's absolutely no research.
Awesome. All right. Sandra here on Zoom has got a boxer, Ali, 6.5, and she asks, if you are going to change to raw food, what would you start with?
Okay, it's an awesome question. So I would, to make it easy, I would buy a commercial dog food, raw. So I would do either Answers, or I would go with, I know Sandra, I can also text you a list of things, of companies, but definitely Answers is my number one. My number two that is the most available would be Primal. And Primal I love because they actually use food for supplements instead of synthetics for vitamins. So I would go with Primal.
And also one more out there, because the original time when I first started with Norman, I literally bought frozen beef liver at the grocery store, local grocery store. I went in there and it was just in the meat section, and I chopped it up and I put about like that much like in their bowls every time I fed them, and they just started having the liver, and it was so amazing that they went for the liver first. They would get the liver and quickly try to get to the other dog's liver, leaving their food behind. It was such an eye-opener where the animals really love that food because it's so nurturing for them, and they loved it. So that's another easy place.
No, it's great. And that's a great point. So like you could crack an egg and put it in the kibble, take some of the kibble out, crack an egg, put some sardines in there, put liver in there. You can literally also go to the grocery store and buy chicken breast or ground beef, the boxer would be great to actually get chicken wings. So I would get organic chicken wings and they will love it.
What about cooked food, like real food, but cooked food?
Yeah, so cooked food this is the thing. Cooked food is better than kibble, but if it's not a balanced, recipe, or if it's not balanced, then you're still going to have nutrient like holes. So what's kind of challenging for me is when people do want to make the change, which is great. They want to make the change, but what they do is then they get rice, they get some veggies, and they put some chicken together, and they think that it's a healthy meal for the dog. Believe me, it is better than kibble, but long-term you have nutritional holes. So you want to make sure that you have bone, and you want to make sure you have excreting organs in the food as well. So that's where I would definitely use a prepackaged raw, or I would make sure that, Whole Food has it. I would also make sure, this is an awesome one, Calcifood. So if you are going to make your own dog food, the dog has to be supplemented through calcium and then also minerals.
Another story.
I know. Sorry.
And I want to share these because there's just so many options and so many, we all love our dogs and we want the best for them. So that little guy, Toby, who's been around for about a year, I just met him though. Anyway, so of course, one of the times when he is on my watch, he's like crazy around the living room and he flips over the back of the couch and he lands. And I was like, oh, that ain't good. He landed like his leg's going one way and he's going the other way. And I was like, oh shit. Like he broke his leg while I'm watching him.
Yeah.
And how old was
he? Like 6 months. He was a baby. I came down the steps and he was all limp. He wouldn't put his,
So I'm like, okay, all right. Definitely not great, but what are we going to do about this? So, I've got a great relationship with my vet, and I think that all of us we should, so I got a great relationship. So I show up right into the back, we get some x-rays, sure enough, broken bone. But now I have an option. And this is where I got, and the doc knows me. He says, well, we got an option. We can bring him right to surgery and we can pin the bone back in. It's basically this happened to the bone. Or you can do whatever you do. And I was like, oh man, I did not want to put a young Frenchie under anesthesia, fill the liver up with that drug that early. Let's listen, because these are real things. I didn't want to fill the liver up with anesthesia because it's going to downregulate the way that the body functions, its healing tissue, all of that. And knowing how incredible the power that made the body heals the body. And I said, man, what if I trusted in that faith? The power that made the body heals the body, and I supplied the body with everything it needs to heal, an environment, some love, nutrition, everything. Is there a chance that this dog could heal its own bone? So sure enough, we went to work. And that's why I was looking at that Calcifood. We went on a very specific bone healing protocol, the same one I use for humans, but humans don't have as much guts as my little dog did. So the dog, the dog is smarter. The dog does this. My leg hurts, don't touch it. I'm not going to try to bend it. It just leaves it alone until the healing process. So we fed it Cal Ammo, of course, turmeric, same one we take. Calcifood for bone healing. Turmeric. We use a very specific thing called ostrophin PMG that we use for humans if you break bones. So we put on a very, very specific protocol. And then, of course, we did tons of red meat with high volume of collagen in it and lots of calcium. Yeah. And sure enough, no surgery, no cast.
He skateboards now.
He's a skateboarder.
Yeah, he was.
So, and listen, I don't recommend to do that. Yet I think, in all of this, even like us, like this whole pandemic, everything about it, like we forget how powerful the human body is. Just that statement by itself, the power that made the body heals the body, doesn't happen any other way. And if we allow ourselves to then support the healing process, there's a lot of powerful things that can happen. All right, more questions. Let's keep digging.
Yeah, we got lots. We also got a comment from Lisa on Facebook. She says she's very allergic to animal dander, and she spends a good amount of time at Balance with your dogs, and they've never provoked any allergic symptoms in me ever.
Nice.
Thanks for that testimony. So listen, I grew up allergic to dogs.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had such bad allergies. Listen, my parents got rid of our dogs.
Wow. And that's potentially the food that the dog's eating.
A dog eats kibble, poops 3 times more than a dog that eats raw.
Oh, that should be a
Can you imagine 7 dogs, what that would be like? Because he's my poop picker upper. That'd be a lot of work.
I love it. All right, so Carla has a dog called Bandit. Has actually started with a holistic acupuncture vet and raw Miami food. But she's ended up on it, but have not found one anywhere that, oh, would you see pets? Oh no, yeah, okay. Don't know whether you guys see pets. I've ended up with Nulu food. Do you have any comments about Nulu? Nulo.
I'm
not familiar with that. Is it bagged? Oh, you can't talk to her, huh?
Yeah. So I think it would just have to pass the test. It comes from God's garden. Is it unprocessed? That's always going to be the standard for the most part.
There are some good like farmer's dog. I think it's Nom Nom. There's like a bunch of like cooked foods that are delivered to your house. The only thing that I would be concerned about feeding, like for me, feeding them to my dogs, is that it's super high in carbohydrate. And then also most of them are synthetic vitamins. Cause I'm always looking for like, what can I do in case like my raw feeding Miami doesn't make it? What else can I do? And that's when I do turn to Answers, or I turn to Primal as the raw.
Another thing.
I know you if you do acupuncture on dogs, Dr. Bart.
Call the studio.
Yeah. And so there's a couple of things I'd love to cover. And I know we're running a little over tonight. If you guys are good with this, hang with us. We're going to continue to answer questions. We keep talking about sometimes you see foods and they're synthetic vitamins. Yeah. You guys know how we feel about this. What was that thing in 2007?
Oh yeah. So actually, no, it was like a couple of years ago, 2019. We, there were several, it was Hills that was purchasing vitamin D from a manufacturer, and it was tainted. And we saw a large amount of dogs that died from the vitamin D poisoning.
Yeah, it was a synthetic vitamin D. So again, and it's one of the reasons we're such advocates of like whole food, whether it be God's garden, but also
because you can't overdose on, like on food, but you can overdose on synthetic vitamins.
Yeah.
Okay, what about, how do you feel about giving your dogs, this is Kim on Zoom, how do you feel about giving your dogs omega-3 fish oils supplements?
Awesome. We feel good about it.
Yeah. We love it. We use cod liver oil all the time. Yeah. Brilliant.
Courtney has a Chinese crested dog and asks, do you worry about the bones? Do you grind them up? Her dog gets whatever organic real food I eat, but she's afraid to give her the bones.
Yeah. And so if that's her comfort zone, I totally respect that. And then I would supplement with something like Calcifood. I would definitely get some sort of calcium supplementation, because if she's making her own food, then she's not getting the calcium. And that's really important that the dogs get that. And then you could also grind the bones in a food processor. Like if it was a soft bone, like chicken wings, you could grind it up and then give the dog that, because I get it. I almost saw our dog like pass out from swallowing a chicken leg whole. So I understand that.
Yeah.
You have to look the bones, like they have to, mine dogs are not like super savvy with that.
Mine managed to get it caught across a piece of bone across the top of her mouth.
Oh,
stuck. So I had to get in there and rip it out, which she seemed fine after I got it out, but it was a bit of a process to try to. Yeah. Anyway, Sandra asks, okay, well, you kind of talked about these, but maybe you could hold them up. What do you think is the top 3 standard processed supplements if you had to pick 3 of them? You got a few there.
I would say,
well,
so it depends what's going on with your dog.
But there's, I would no doubt though, the canine whole body support.
Yeah. And then I would say
turmeric.
Yeah, I would say turmeric.
So turmeric, because we're talking about inflammation for all animals, and we haven't even talked about,
especially if your dog's on kibble.
But we haven't even talked about environmental toxins, like running where there's pesticides sprayed on lawns and stuff
flea
like
and
that.
tick, heartworm medicine.
We won't cover that tonight.
There's so much.
So turmeric, absolutely.
Yeah. We'll do another show.
There's another one, Karen, that I probably would lean toward, and there's one called musculoskeletal support.
Yeah.
Muscles, tendons, and ligaments. Listen, 1 million knee surgeries for dogs. That's ludicrous. It's unbelievably sickening, the fact that dogs are blowing out their ACLs. And there's a couple of reasons for it. We talked about the desexing. It's demineralization. It's D vitamins. Meaning we have deficiencies in both of those. And because they eat so much kibble, the dogs are now overweight. So we've got to do a little better job. We got to support their muscles, tendons, and ligaments. So
I would also say chlorophyll. So if you want 4, chlorophyll.
Why?
And then
why?
Because it'll heal the gut.
Yeah, heal the gut.
It'll heal the gut. And all dogs need gut healing, especially if they're eating kibble. One more thing just to throw out there, just because we're here, why not? So this is Simplex F. Mm-hmm. And so if your dog has been desexed, like Paris, so she was a breeding dog. And so she just talked to me. She was spayed. And so she gets a Simplex F just to help with hormonal balance because she doesn't have those normal hormones now. So Simplex M or F for your dog, if it has been desexed, amazing. And a lot of holistic vets are using it. And that's where we get our research.
Yep.
Wow, she agrees. There you go. From Paris herself. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we answered this here because Anna asks, if you feed your dog raw or clean, does it make their dander less allergenic to people who are affected? I think we've just had a great testimonial to that, right?
Yeah. And it's kind of like this, Karen, to give a feel for that dander, think of that dander and the odor that the animals put off is very much like body odor for humans. And when we eat bad, we smell bad. That's that we talked about that last week. So it's no different than your animals. If they just stink and they're really foul smelling gas and their body odor stink, and you walk into the house and that's all you say. We have 7 dogs. Man, I'm sure it smells a little bit like something, but I promise you, it doesn't sound like a dog farm.
But that makes a difference.
Food
it
makes
definitely
a huge
does.
difference. Yeah.
Okay, Kim asks, how do you determine the amount? Like how many cups of raw meat and veggies do you feed your dog? Is it based on the weight of your dog?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's really awesome. So there's a lot of different philosophies about it. 2% body weight.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, I think it's 2% of the body weight.
You feed them.
Yeah. So I just do it. I eyeball it. And then honestly, like I used to weigh it out. And like I said, I think it's 2% of the dog's body weight. And you want to do, so for us, we do 95% meat. So like muscle meat and then the organ and the bone. So that's 95%. And then we do about 5% of veggies. And so just because I've been doing it so long, I know this is the great thing. If you decide to do prepackaged raw, it's done for you. You'll get a little patty and it'll even say on the bag, like feed them a patty and a half based on this weight. I do it based on how skinny and chubby they look. We weigh them often just to kind of keep them fit.
Yeah. So, and those are real things. Like we do that as humans. We monitor, measure, then we adapt, adjust, and re-execute. And then so our dogs, we monitor their weight regularly, and then also how fit they are. Like, can they walk a mile? And then we know, like, when they gain weight, they don't do that good with their walks. So like, there's those fundamental things that we shouldn't overlook. And I think we'll have to return for another dog episode about like behavior and, and dog walking, and can't just put
exercise, like not just putting your dog in the backyard and thinking that is enough for your dog to see the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So many topics. All right. We've got, Roxanne asks, what do you do for birth control if you don't desex?
Responsible parenthood. Yeah. So like we have a situation in our house that we have to have, party Pampers, like literally she's like off to the side and it's work. It's a pain. It's not awesome. But honestly, if again, it's like convenience kills vitality. So it's not convenient for me, but I want my dogs to thrive.
So, and to that too, I think it's worthy of understanding a lot of the myths that go with dogs that are still intact. So we have 3 intact boys? Mm-hmm.
4, yeah.
4 intact boys. And then we have a girl that she's going to go heat again. So it's issues. So one of the things that you always hear about intact boys is that they're more aggressive. The interesting thing, so here, listen close, everyone. If I bring, say, Dr. Bob to the dog park and he's the only dog that's intact, the other dogs will pick on him and attack him because they know he has the hormones. So they start fights with dogs that are intact. So it's a misperception. Most dogs that have their stuff are a little bit more balanced, where the other one, it's real interesting. It's a little bit misperception of how that really takes place. Now, will they want to mark a little bit more? Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They like to use their nose.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Okay, Nat asks, is all the food you use frozen? Is the food in portion sizes, and do you thaw it every morning?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I do, right? Not convenient. So I pull the food out. It comes in 2.5 pound bags. Already the grind is 2.5 pounds. And so I pull 3 of them out every day. I thaw it overnight. And then I have my veggies in the fridge, and I put my 14 bowls out because we feed them twice a day. Actually 15 because Toby eats 3 times. So I have my 15 bowls, and I do it all in the morning. And the rest of the bowls go in the refrigerator for dinner, and then they eat breakfast. But yeah, convenient? No, but I want my dogs to thrive.
And why twice a day rather than just once a day?
So we feed them twice a day, just really, sometimes they get something called hunger pukes, and it's when your dog wakes up in the morning and it throws up bile, like yellow bile. So we had a lot of our dogs only feeding once a day. They were having that, which basically said they were ready to eat. Like the body was like, the stomach was empty. They had digested the food. They were good to go, and they kind of needed to be fed again. So that's why. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Laurie, we got a few more. Laurie asks, I'm not sure what type of dog, but when we adopted Charlie, he had dandruff and itchy skin. Obviously, we've had one of these situations. It's severe now, and he's on Apoquel daily for allergies. Coconut oil helps a bit, but what else can I do?
Awesome. I love that you answered that you asked that question. So this is what I would do. I'm hoping that you saw the section that we just went through with Kingston. If you didn't, please go back and watch it. If he were my dog, I would stop the Apoquel right away. I don't know if you've ever talked to your vet about how long the dog was supposed to be on it. I think it's like 3 weeks only, just to get out of like the emergency situation and to get the dog comfortable. You're in a vicious cycle of the dog basically needing his immune system suppressed. The other thing is, I would love to know whether or not your dog, because it's been itchy, if it's been on antibiotics. So what I would say, heal the gut, and then get him on, transition him to raw food. To make it easy for you, get the pre-packaged, you can go Answers or Primal or wherever you are in the country. I would just find a boutique, pet shop that carries some sort of pre-packaged raw, and I would change immediately. I would also add,
I'm gonna go real technical for that person.
Because we can help you.
Yeah, I'll go real technical for a moment. One, if the dog's starting to get real itchy like that, we got to get the junk out. So we got to get the liver and the detox process going really good. And then we have to acidify the dog. We use something very specifically. It's a whole food supplement called Cal Ammo. And we've got to change the pH back to a normal. Oh, you got it.
I just happen to have it here.
Wow, okay. So we got to acidify the dog, and you'll have the dog on that on a regular basis for probably 8 to 12 weeks. And then very specifically for the skin, there's a very specific, what's called Protomorphogen. It's a whole food supplement that Standard Process makes. It's called Dermatrophin PMG. This helps the DNA of the skin. At this point, when the skin's that bad, it turns almost into an autoimmune condition.
Yeah.
So that is to help heal the tissue itself. Then we're going to make sure that we're getting real food back in. So there's things that are going to be really helpful. Like you said, the coconut oil, fantastic. Yeah. We're going to double down on fish oils here. We're also going to make sure that the diet is raw. I would say get rid of all the other stuff. The beauty is like Primal is one of the ones that Kelly mentioned, which means that it's like 95% the proteins and 5% the vegetables. So it's a really good, really easy way. It's a little sloppy, but those are fundamentally some simple things you can do. Like what we did with Kingston wasn't very hard. It was consistent.
Yeah.
It was consistent. And if you do that, you will notice a change, because that's what the body is going to be using the process. So, and then turmeric, that'll down regulate the inflammation. That's going to kind of replace the anti-inflammatories and the steroid type stuff that you're using right now, but that down regulating of inflammation will give your doggy some comfort.
And I think too, also just to kind of give you a couple more tips, I would definitely bathe him maybe, I don't know, a couple times a week. And then I would use a specific product called Coat Defense. And Coat Defense is a powder and it's all natural. They can lick their paws. And what it does is if the dog's yeasty, it helps absorb it. But I would clean the dog and then I would use that Coat Defense and be patient because it takes time. It definitely takes time. But for the long haul, the best thing is to get your dog off Apoquel. It is not a good drug.
Okay, awesome. All right, Kim asks us, when a dog eats grass, does that mean they're lacking something in their diet or if their belly is upset?
Yeah, there's usually two things to that. I'll
Yeah,
take
go
this
ahead.
one. Usually the dog is trying to pull enzymes out of the grass. So usually what you'll see is that the dog will eat the grass, and it's one of the ways it can help adapt to the environment as the seasons change. It literally will eat the grass, it'll absorb all the enzymes and vomit up the fiber because dogs are not good. That's why they're not vegetarians. So they will literally vomit back up a big wad of grass. Nothing wrong with this. It can also use those enzymes because they're lacking in the gut. So it could be one of two things. They're using it to innately provide for their immune system. It's almost like us eating honey locally. You know what I mean? And it helps our immune system.
My guess is that dog is a kibble fed dog.
If he's kibble fed,
Yeah.
most likely there's a deficiency in nutrients, and the dog is trying to get enzymes from something that's alive. So it just eats grass.
Chlorophyll would be great for the dog.
Chlorophyll
Yeah.
is really what it's want. That's what, when you eat grass, so you guys, when you had like jeans on, you slid in the grass and your jeans turned green, that's chlorophyll. That's what the animal wants. That's plant blood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're down to a couple more. Someone in here on Zoom, Fiddler asks, what do you use for fleas?
Oh, that's another story. So we personally don't use any chemicals on our dogs. So we practice, let's see, we don't really have a hard time with fleas. We feed them well. So the dogs, fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes go after weak dogs. Like, yeah. So for us, we have had fleas in the past. We use a company called Cedar Side and we spray the lawn and it's just cedar wood.
Just cedar.
Yeah. So
And I use cedar chips.
cedar chips.
I border the property with cedar. You know, and
we'll use a comb if someone has a flea on them, we bathe them and we get rid of the problem instead of every month putting toxic chemicals on your dogs. So we are not advocates of flea medicine.
and I tell you, the reason is we didn't just like wake up and be like, yeah, we're anti-dog like stuff. Like, man, we've had so many dogs and we've seen so many bad
We've
reactions.
had reactions, so we stopped.
Yeah. So, you know, and again, probably time for different sort of, I remember we got one of our Tyler.
Yeah. We
got him a shot, walks out in the road and falls over and has a seizure because of one of the meds. Yeah. So like we've been down that road and then we like backed up.
3 days at the vet, 3 full days at the vet, like recovering from booster shots.
Yeah. So we've been down there. So it's not just this, like, we're anti this, we've been down there and those are our little, you know, that's the love of our lives.
Well,
so
we don't use mosquito pellet for ourselves either. So like we'll use essential oils and that's the same thing with like flea and also tick. I mean, if I go somewhere, I may put a little bit of essential oil on the dog, but I also know that like I'm not going deep in the woods because I don't want to have to pick ticks off of them. So
yeah, all right, fair enough. All right, Darcy asks, do you have any raw food recipes for dogs? Do you grind up your own things?
So I used to go to Walmart. I'd get my chicken hearts, I'd get my beef liver, I'd get my beef and the bison and all that stuff. And honestly, I'm too busy. Like, and I'm picking convenience because I want my dogs to eat well. I want them to be vital. So I buy the best of the best that's already pre-made. And it's literally bone, organs, and meat, frozen bag. And they ship it right to the door. And I love them. The company is amazing. Raw Feeding Miami, love them.
Okay, awesome. And what about, have you got any tips for transitions for older dogs?
Yeah. So
Quick.
yeah. So like when we transitioned Kingston, we just did it right away. But so my mom and dad have a 15-year-old pug, and my dad like listens to us, and like he loves that dog. He wants that dog to be around for another 20 years, right? So what he did was he just started adding a little bit to the kibble, and before you knew it, all the kibble was gone and it was just raw food. And he does a prepackaged primal from Bow Wow Meow right in Seagrove, but it's a great product if you want the convenience of feeding raw.
Yeah, love it. I think we've got the last question here. Thank you so much for answering so many questions. But Kim asks, what do you feed for treats? Do you do treats?
We do, yes. So I have one company that I buy that has like 3 ingredients, and I don't know the name of it, and we have like 40 of them. It's so funny. It's basically deboned lamb. And then for the preservatives, it's like rosemary extract. So it's like, and then there's like maybe a little bit of salt or something. I don't know. There's like something else in there. But yeah, it's and so I only buy those treats. That's it.
Okay.
But,
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh my gosh, so much information. Thank you so much. Well, we do of course have a last question for you though. Yeah, we'll have to check for Kelli. We'll have to change it up a little bit, because our last question of the show is always, what is one action our listeners can take to move them towards their goal of superhuman? So today's going to be, what's the one action everybody takes to move their dogs towards superhuman dogs, super dogs? Yeah.
I would say give your dog a choice. So give your dog a choice.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is give your dog a choice, see if it would prefer a better food. And then also give your dog a choice when you walk it. Let him go outside and sniff. We're always in such a hurry, and I fall into this sometimes too. It's like, I want to exercise my dogs, and I forget that their nose is a way for them to explore the world. So let them sniff, let them have some fun, and allow your dogs to have a choice.
I love that. Yes, thank you so much. We will definitely have to do another episode on this, because I think there's so much we could dive into that we had to skim over. So thank you so much for jumping on with us today, Kelli. We've all learned so much. I've learned so much. I've got some tips right away.
And of course, everyone, thank you guys for doing your thing. Keep, even an episode like this, keep sharing it out, keep spreading the love here. You never know who we're going to impact by just giving them little tidbits like this. So it always starts with something. So, and then as usual, we're going to take deliberate action for our mind, for our body, for overall wellness. And that'll be awesome.